In the heart of 15th century Europe, a shadow loomed over the lives of ordinary citizens. The Church, once a sanctuary of faith, transformed into an institution of fear, where whispers of heresy could lead to unimaginable consequences. Summoned without warning, individuals found themselves at the mercy of inquisitors, men cloaked in authority and secrecy. The very act of questioning became a tool of manipulation, designed to extract confessions from the innocent and guilty alike. The Inquisition thrived on a doctrine that blurred the lines between faith and fear. Citizens lived in a state of constant anxiety, knowing that their beliefs could be scrutinized. Their souls weighed against the Church's unforgiving standards. Confession became inevitable, a twisted necessity in a world where doubt was a crime. The Church's power grew, fueled by a relentless pursuit of purity, leaving a trail of broken lives in its wake. The machinery of the Inquisition operated in the shadows, its processes shrouded in secrecy. Legal frameworks were crafted to ensure that guilt was not only assumed but manufactured, turning the innocent into the condemned. As the years unfolded, the Inquisition expanded its reach, targeting not just heretics, but anyone deemed a threat to the Church's authority. Neighbors turned against neighbors, and trust eroded in the face of suspicion. In this climate of fear, the line between faith and betrayal blurred. The Church's claim to defend the soul transformed into a mechanism of oppression, leaving a legacy of terror that would haunt generations. Yet, amidst the darkness, questions began to arise. How did an institution that once offered solace become synonymous with dread? What drove the relentless pursuit of confessions, often at the cost of innocent lives? As the Inquisition tightened its grip, the stage was set for a reckoning. The fear it instilled would not go unchallenged forever. What would it take for the truth to emerge from the shadows of this dark chapter? In the 12th century, the rise of heretical movements like the Cathars challenged the Catholic Church's authority. Their beliefs, seen as a direct threat to the established order, ignited fears of doctrinal collapse among church leaders. As dissent grew, the Church's response became increasingly severe. Theologians began to intertwine their fears with political anxieties, leading to the creation of extraordinary judicial powers to combat perceived threats to faith. The notion of heresy transformed from a mere disagreement into a cosmic battle against evil. Church leaders began to see themselves as defenders of divine truth, tasked with rooting out those who strayed from orthodoxy. Innocent III's papacy marked a turning point. He asserted the Church's authority over secular rulers, declaring that heresy was not only a spiritual failing, but a crime against the state, merging faith and governance. As the 13th century progressed, the Church formalized its approach to heresy. New procedures were developed, allowing inquisitors to investigate and prosecute suspected heretics, legitimizing their actions in the name of faith. Theological debates intensified, with scholars arguing over the nature of sin and the necessity of punishment. This intellectual climate laid the groundwork for a judicial system that would soon wield immense power over lives. Inquisitors began to emerge as figures of authority, often cloaked in the guise of piety. Their zeal was fueled by a belief that they were saving souls, even as they wielded fear as their primary weapon. The Church's growing paranoia about heresy was not unfounded. It reflected a broader societal unease. As political factions vied for power, the Inquisition became a tool for both spiritual and temporal control. Thus, the Inquisition was born out of a confluence of faith and fear. The Church's response to dissent would evolve into a systematic approach that blurred the lines between belief and persecution, setting the stage for future horrors. In the early 13th century, the Church began to formalize its response to heresy. Papal bulls issued by Innocent III established a framework that granted inquisitors unprecedented powers, transforming suspicion into a legal instrument. With these new directives, inquisitors were empowered to act without fear of reprisal. They became both judges and executioners, operating under a veil of secrecy that shielded their actions from scrutiny. The Inquisition's procedures were meticulously documented in manuals. These texts outlined interrogation methods and legal protocols, creating a chilling bureaucracy designed to root out dissent with precision. As the system evolved, registries of suspects emerged, Each name recorded represented a potential threat to the church, a whisper that could spiral into an accusation, fueling a climate of fear. Inquisitors began to rely on informants, creating a network of suspicion that extended into every corner of society. Neighbors turned against neighbors, and trust eroded in the face of fear. The legal structures established by the Inquisition blurred the lines between guilt and innocence. Accusations alone could lead to imprisonment, with little regard for evidence or due process. As the 14th century approached, the Inquisition's influence expanded across Europe. The fear of heresy became a tool for political power, as rulers sought to align with the church to suppress dissent. The formalization of fear through legal means created a chilling atmosphere. Citizens lived under the constant threat of being accused, leading to a society where silence was often the only safe response. The Inquisition's machinery was now fully operational, with its gears turning relentlessly. As whispers turned into trials, the consequences of suspicion loomed ever larger, setting the stage for the horrors to come. Within the dimly lit chambers of the Inquisition, the air hangs heavy with dread. Accused individuals sit alone, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear, awaiting the relentless questioning that will soon begin. The cold stone walls echo with the whispers of their unspoken guilt, as the inquisitors prepare to wield psychological pressure like a weapon, intent on extracting confessions that may not exist. Inquisitors, clad in somber robes, enter the chamber, their expressions unreadable. They carry with them not only authority but also a chilling resolve. The process of interrogation is methodical, each question crafted to lead the accused into a web of self-incrimination, blurring the lines between truth and coercion. The intent is clear, to break the spirit without leaving physical marks. Isolation becomes a tool of torment. Days stretch into weeks as the accused are kept in dark cells, deprived of sunlight and companionship. The absence of human contact amplifies their fears, making them vulnerable to the manipulative tactics of their interrogators. In this silence, guilt is manufactured, and confessions become a desperate bid for release from their mental anguish. Leading questions twist the narrative, forcing the accused to confront their own beliefs and doubts. The inquisitors exploit the very essence of faith, suggesting that uncertainty is synonymous with heresy. As the interrogation progresses, the line between reality and the fabricated truth blurs, creating a psychological battleground where the accused must navigate their own fears to survive. The power imbalance is stark. Inquisitors wield not only the authority of the church, but also the weight of societal fear. The accused, stripped of their dignity, are often forced to confess to crimes they did not commit. The act of confession, once a sacred ritual, becomes a mechanism of control, a means to uphold the institution's power at any cost. The chambers resonate with the echoes of despair. Accusations spiral, and the atmosphere is charged with paranoia. Each confession feeds the machinery of the Inquisition, reinforcing the belief that dissent is a threat to the very fabric of society. The psychological tactics employed are designed to instill a sense of inevitable guilt, where the act of denial becomes a further indictment. Confessions extracted under duress become the foundation for trials, where the accused are often condemned without evidence. The logic of the Inquisition dictates that the mere act of questioning is sufficient to establish guilt. This perverse rationale transforms the very nature of justice, where the truth is not sought but manufactured through fear and manipulation. The psychological scars left by such interrogations run deep. Many individuals emerge from these chambers irrevocably changed, their faith shattered, and their identities fractured. The Inquisition's methods create a legacy of fear that permeates society, as the specter of accusation looms over even the most devout. The cycle of pressure and confession continues, feeding the insatiable hunger for control. As the Inquisition tightens its grip, the chambers become not just places of interrogation, but symbols of a broader societal collapse. The quest for truth, through coercion, reveals the fragility of human belief in the face of institutional power. With each confession, the story unfolds deeper into darkness, setting the stage for the trials and tribulations that lie ahead. In the heart of 15th century Spain, the Inquisition's grip tightened. Accusations flew like wildfire, fueled by whispers of heresy and fear. Courts convened in shadowy chambers where the line between justice and terror blurred, and the fate of many hung in the balance. Public autos de fe became spectacles of dread. Crowds gathered in plazas, eyes fixed on the accused, their fates determined by the fervor of the moment. The spectacle was both a warning and a celebration of the church's power, as fear mingled with a grim sense of justice. Behind closed doors, inquisitors deliberated in secrecy. Evidence was often scant, yet the weight of rumor proved sufficient to condemn. The machinery of the Inquisition thrived on paranoia, where the mere suggestion of heresy could lead to devastating consequences. In Italy and Germany, similar patterns emerged. Councils empowered inquisitors, creating a web of fear that ensnared entire communities. Accusations escalated rapidly, often based on personal vendettas, as neighbors turned against one another, driven by the desire for self-preservation. As trials unfolded, the standards of evidence crumbled, testimonies were coerced, and the truth became a casualty of the Inquisition's relentless pursuit of conformity. The very fabric of justice was warped, as fear dictated the rules of engagement. The spectacle of punishment was designed to instill fear. Those found guilty faced brutal fates, often executed publicly, their deaths serving as grim reminders of the consequences of dissent. The Inquisition's grip tightened further with each act of terror. The Inquisition's reach extended beyond the courtroom. It infiltrated daily life, as families lived in constant anxiety, fearing accusations that could arise from the most innocuous actions. Trust eroded, and communities fractured under the weight of suspicion. In this atmosphere of dread, the role of the inquisitor became both revered and reviled. Some believed they were guardians of faith, while others wielded their power for personal gain. The motivations behind their actions were as varied as the fates of the accused. As the Inquisition continued its relentless pursuit of heresy, the consequences of its trials rippled through society. Fear became a tool, and the quest for control deepened. The stage was set for a reckoning, as the foundations of this dark chapter began to tremble. The figure of Tomás de Torquemada looms large in the history of the Inquisition. Appointed as the first Grand Inquisitor in 1483, he embodied the fervent zeal of a man convinced that he was purging sin from society, even as fear gripped the populace. Torquemada's influence was profound, as he established a network of informants and spies. His methods were ruthless, relying on secrecy and intimidation to root out heresy, often leading to public executions that served as grim spectacles. Bernardo Gui, another notorious inquisitor, operated with a similar fervor. His writings, including the Practica Inquisitionis, outlined procedures for interrogations and trials, reflecting a mindset that viewed dissent as a direct challenge to divine order. Gui's relentless pursuit of heretics often led to the persecution of those who merely questioned the status quo. His belief in the righteousness of his mission blinded him to the suffering inflicted upon innocent lives. Many inquisitors were not driven by fanaticism, but rather by ambition. They sought advancement within the church, utilizing the Inquisition as a means to elevate their status and secure their positions of power. The culture of fear fostered by these inquisitors created a climate where betrayal was commonplace. Neighbors turned against each other, and the fabric of communities began to unravel under the weight of suspicion and paranoia. The writings of inquisitors reveal a chilling rationale for their actions. They viewed themselves as instruments of divine justice, convinced that their brutal methods were necessary to save souls from eternal damnation. Yet the very zeal that drove these men often led to their downfall. As the Inquisition expanded, internal conflicts arose, and the ambitions of individual inquisitors sometimes clashed with the overarching goals of the Church. As the Inquisition continued its relentless pursuit of heresy, the motivations of its enforcers became increasingly complex. The interplay of faith, fear, and ambition set the stage for the challenges that lay ahead for this institution. In the early 16th century, a wave of humanist thought began to emerge, challenging the rigid doctrines of the Church. Scholars like Erasmus questioned the validity of confessions obtained under duress, sparking debates that would unsettle the foundations of the Inquisition. As the Enlightenment took root, voices within the Church began to rise against the abuses of power. Theologians and jurists started to advocate for justice, calling for transparency in trials and the reevaluation of evidence that had long been taken for granted. In Spain, the atmosphere was charged with tension as intellectuals like Juan de Mariana began to openly criticize the Inquisition's methods. His writings questioned the morality of punishing individuals based on coerced confessions, igniting a fire of dissent among the educated elite. The rise of skepticism was not limited to humanists. Even within the ranks of the Inquisition, some inquisitors began to express doubts. Their internal conflicts revealed cracks in the system, as personal beliefs clashed with the oppressive mandates they were sworn to uphold. In France, the writings of Montaigne further fueled the flames of doubt. His essays on the nature of belief and the fallibility of human judgment resonated with those questioning the Inquisition's authority, suggesting that reason could triumph over fear. Across Europe, the growing discourse on human rights and individual liberties began to challenge the Inquisition's grip. Pamphlets circulated, spreading ideas that emphasized the dignity of the accused, urging society to reconsider the morality of its judicial practices. Amidst this intellectual upheaval, the Inquisition faced increasing scrutiny. The very secrecy that had once protected its operations became a liability, as calls for accountability grew louder, threatening to dismantle the fortress of fear it had built over centuries. As the Enlightenment continued to spread, the foundation of unquestioned authority began to tremble. The clash between tradition and emerging reason hinted at a transformative shift, one that would soon challenge the very essence of the Inquisition itself. As the Inquisition's grip weakened by the late 18th century, its courts began to dissolve, replaced by secular legal systems. The shadows of fear, however, lingered in the collective memory of the populace, echoing the past's terror. In Spain, the last remnants of the Inquisition were officially abolished in 1834. Yet, the echoes of its trials and the specter of its authority continued to haunt society, shaping attitudes toward justice and morality for generations. The archives of the Inquisition, filled with testimonies and confessions, became a chilling reminder of its legacy. Scholars and historians began to sift through these documents, revealing the human stories behind the faceless victims of the past. The myths surrounding the Inquisition evolved, often romanticized in literature and art. These narratives both reflect and distort the reality of its brutality, perpetuating a cycle of fear and fascination that persists to this day. As the Enlightenment took hold, the Inquisition's legacy prompted a reevaluation of authority, faith, and individual rights. Philosophers and writers began to challenge the notion of absolute power, advocating for justice grounded in reason rather than fear. The Inquisition's impact extended beyond its immediate victims. It shaped legal frameworks, influencing how societies approached dissent and heresy, leaving behind a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked institutional power. In modern times, the Inquisition serves as a stark reminder of the potential for cruelty within systems designed to uphold morality. Its legacy prompts ongoing discussions about justice, human rights, and the balance of power. As we reflect on the Inquisition's dark chapters, we are reminded of the fragility of justice and the importance of vigilance against the forces that seek to silence dissent. Its shadow lingers, urging us to remember.